The book of Job, epic tale of joy and mirth and gaiety. Or not. Satan slanders a righteous man's motives. The guy's name was Job. Before God, so God allows Satan to test his character. God let him do it. And Job and his friends argue about why terrible things are happening to him. Many scientific references are included here, and I use a lot of them when I'm arguing apologetics. The author, nobody really knows, probably Job himself or one of his kids perhaps. And also there is conjecture that it might be Elihu, which was one of his friends that were telling him why everything stinks all of a sudden. In Job, Jesus is a mediator between God and man. And I have two verses mentioned. Job 19:25, I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand upon the earth. And then in Job 26:7, he spreads out the northern skies over empty space. He suspends the earth over nothing. That is a real important verse. The reason I put it in there is because it's one of the ways that I prove the inspiration of Scripture and its historical accuracy, because we know that the earth is floating in space, and nobody even conceived of that when this was written. This book was written before Genesis was written. This is the oldest book in the Bible. Now, the stories from Genesis were probably written down and taken into Egypt. So, but what we have is a finished book. Job was written before the book of Genesis. Job is actually, if you look at some of the chronologies and the family trees in First Chronicles, you'll find out that Job is actually the grandson of Abraham by one of the wives he had later in life. And Job went to the east. And that's where we go today. 42 chapters long, the entire story of Job, even though it's 42 chapters long, is told in 45 verses. 42 chapters to get there. Job is called a righteous man by Ezekiel, on par, equal with Noah and with Daniel. That's insane. He's a better guy than me, is my rough guess. Noah was the godliest man in the world in his generation, and Daniel's testimony is still one of the most famous testimonies in Bible history. Daniel in the lion's den, facing Nebuchadnezzar like Daniel was the real deal. Noah, the unquestionably godliest man on the planet, according to God, and Job is compared with those two guys. Job is something else. Still today, their stories are the number one thing told in children's church. More people quote from Noah and from Daniel than any other source for children's church worldwide. So those are the stories that God chooses to lead the next generation to him, and Job is compared to those two guys. He's described as honest and innocent, a man who honored God and stayed away from evil. James 5 coins the phrase, the patience of Job, that we've all heard. Think for a moment about that. Job was patient. Have you ever had your patience tested? Because it isn't fun, especially not if you're a German. Job was patient. What does that mean? That is the first verb. There's like in 1 Corinthians 13, there's like 16 different verbs that describe what love is. And the first one is patient. Love is patient and kind. You hear it at every wedding. It's like the only time anyone reads the Bible. It's like everyone knows that love is patient and kind. Love is patient and kind. And Job is described is patient. Because he loved enough, he was willing to wait for his wife and his kids to catch up. That's love. If you love someone, it's easier to wait for them. Beautiful, isn't it? That's the kind of guy that Job was, starting in chapter 1. A man named Job lived in the land of Uz. He was an honest and innocent man. He honored God and stayed away from evil. Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters, 10 kids. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, and 500 female donkeys. He also had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. It's not uncommon to read about a moral guy. That's kind of common. It's not unusual to read about a wealthy man. Libraries are full of both of those two examples. It's a little more rare to read about a godly man who's very, very wealthy, but those stories are out there too, and we all know we can all draw examples from any one of those. It's rare to read about a godly, wealthy man who loses it all, including his family, including his health. Now, it's much more rare to read of a godly, wealthy man who loses his health, his wealth, and family, but he keeps his soul right with God. A godly man with great riches to lose everything, his health, even his 10 children. It's hard burying your own kid. And then regains his health, wealth, in a new family. And the end is even better than the first state, and never lost his faith in God. Through all of that, he didn't sin. That you only see here, that example here in this book. So when God says somebody's good, when God's in heaven, rubbing Job's behavior, rubbing the devil's nose in it. Have you seen my guy Job? Have you seen what he's like? Because the devil's always yapping about what's wrong with somebody. The first thing the devil does is attack and slander someone's character. That's what he did in the Garden of Eden. He lied about the character of God. You're not going to. He's lied. God doesn't know what he's talking about. You ain't going to die. Right? That's what Satan does. He slanders people. So when we're thinking about maybe saying the wrong thing about somebody, maybe think about that for a minute. You know what I mean? Because it's easy to do. It's easy to fight with your mouth. You know what I mean? You get old guys, we don't like that too much. We're a little more sensitive than other people. You know, it just doesn't work for us. But think about that. When we're talking about somebody that's not there. Oh, I see those hints. You want to take it from there?
Sure. Job's sons took turns holding feasts in their homes and invited their sisters to eat and drink with them. After a feast was over, Job would send and have them made clean. Early in the morning, Job would offer a burnt offering for each of them because he thought, my children may have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Job did this every time.
And understand, he did this without Genesis, without Leviticus, without Exodus. This is what he did. His only example, according that we have from Scripture, the only evidence we have of that is Cain and Abel were offering sacrifices. This is before the law. And he was doing this just in case his kids had sinned in their hearts. They weren't going to do nothing or say nothing around him because they wanted a slice of daddy's pie. But he was worried that they didn't mean it, that their relationship with God is just lip service. So he wanted to be careful, just in case my children sin. And he was a righteous man in God's eyes. When you're praying for your kids, even if you don't see them, believe me, God honors that. God honors that. That chili take its toll, girl?
One day the angels came to show themselves before the Lord, and Satan was with them. The Lord said to Satan, where have you come from? Satan answered the Lord, I've been wandering around the earth, going back and forth in it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you noticed my servant Job? No one else on earth is like him. He is an honest and innocent man, honoring God and staying away from evil.
Why did God ask Satan where he was? Like he knew. Like he's God. Like he knows everything. In my heart, but then here he goes, why did God ask him? But why did God ask Satan specifically, where were you? Why didn't he say, hey, I seen where you've been? You know, like if I was God, I'd have done some of the stuff God does differently. Like in the Garden of Eden, he's like walking through the garden saying, Adam, Eve, where are you? I wouldn't have done that. If I was God, because I know where they are, and they're naked, covered up with leaves, I'd have snuck up behind them. Hey! You know, like, make a pay.
And that's why you're not.
Yeah, if you're giving Adam a heart attack before he had kids.
Now in my heart, I have kind of a conviction. I think God asked him, like God is poking. God is like picking a fight. Just like, no, trust me, just stay with me for a minute. I think that Satan was circling that camp, that it really was bugging Satan that he couldn't get a slice of Job pie. That's what Job wanted. And God knew it, and God was backing it off because God had a story he wanted to tell, and he knew Job wasn't going to let him down. This is a guy that cares. And I'm cooking up a story for his great-great-grandchildren to live by, and it's going to hurt him, but if he knew I was going to do it, he would say, whatever you want. I know this guy. I know I can count on Job. I think that's what God was doing. And I think it was really bugging Satan. He ran the whole world roughshod, and right there he couldn't touch him. And Satan's like a stupid little kid. Like when you tell your kid he's running around with a screwdriver going to the outlet, don't do that. And boy, as soon as you say don't stick the screwdriver in the outlet, what does he want to do? Boy, that becomes his life's goal. It's to stick that screwdriver in the light socket and see what happens. That's how I was. Let me tell you, my uncle, my grandparents, a week after school let out, they'd ship me to Canada. Go to your grandparents. And I stay in Canada for like 3 months. And then a week before school let out, started up again, they'd send me home on a bus. And I was on a bus alone the first time. I was 3 years old on a Greyhound from Cleveland to Kitchener, Ontario. My grandparents would pick me up there. And well, after a month or so, my grandparents were starting to probably get a little afraid. And so they would stick me on the Fowles farm for 2 or 3 weeks in the middle of the summer, and then another week on the horse farm with Risty and Tibor, my cousins. And my uncle said, he's fixing to drop me off. I'm like 4. Drop me off. Eddie's coming out of the house, my cousin who was about my age, maybe a year older, year and a half older. And go to Eddie and don't go in the barn. And as soon as he said it, all I needed was the barn. That's all I cared about. What's it? So I'm walking back with Eddie, and my uncle's truck is going down the thing, and then he's going to make a left and go down the road, and he's going to repair a fence for about 50 miles. And because we had 16,000 head of beef cattle and dairy cattle. So it's a big farm, right? We had 50 miles of corn. And so all the way back to the house, I'm asking, what's in the barn? 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 Shut up. Don't worry about it. What's in the barn? What's in the barn? It's the bull. What's in the barn? We can't go in there. My dad said we can't go in there. What's in the barn? I want to see the barn. I want to go in the barn, right? I'm doing one of those because I'm kind of a jerk. And so finally he gives in, right? All 6 years old of his wisdom. Yeah, let's put the 4-year-old in the barn with the bull. So you go in there, and they had these like telephone poles made into a corral, and there was one bull in there, and it was about a 12 by 12, smaller than this room. It was only about 12 foot long, 12 foot wide, made with telephone poles. And the bull that was the father of almost all the cows on that farm. And it was a prize, and it was a monster. This thing was huge. And especially if you're like 4, it's even worse. And so we go in peek, and it's like, oh, I'm doing something naughty. It was the greatest thing in the world. You're 4, that's worth money. And it had a ring in its nose and a big rope. And so I'm asking, hey, what's with the rope? What's the rope? What do you mean, what's with the rope? Why there's a rope in its nose? Why is there a rope in its nose? How come there's a rope in its nose? There's a rope in its nose. Why'd they put it there? Who put a rope in a bull's nose? You're going like, whatever. He says, well,
and David, but go ahead.
you can control the bull by that. He says, I can control the bull. Not you. I mean, that's when they're going to breed the bull. If they grab that, like that bull is a wild animal. They can't be tamed. But if you have that rope in its nose, you can steer it and it'll do what you tell it to do. It turns into like a kitten. I says, you're telling me if I grab that rope, that bull do whatever I want? He said, well, not exactly. I mean, he don't like it. But yeah, pretty much that's how it works. Oh, boy, the fireworks are going off in my head. You know what I mean? So sure enough, man, I got to try it. I don't want to grab the rope. I just want to touch it, Just touch the rope. And this bull did not like anyone in the barn. And it's pushing on those telephone beams and flexing the wood. Like this thing was big. But that rope was dangling right there. I thought, so I grabbed it. And that thing, and it was like, and I grabbed that rope and it calmed down like right away. All the boogers coming down my hand. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And it's like exhaling really wet. And I pushed back and it backed up. And I pulled forward and it pulled forward. And he's like, dude, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. Hey, dude, we got to get out of here. Let go of the rope. Just like, nah, I think I'm going to go inside. And so I put my leg over and that thing is backed up and it's not happy. And I put my other leg over and I backed this thing up almost to the wall. And it's like its head is like this to a 4-year-old, right? And I'm thinking I'm the strongest man that ever lived. I'm Samson. I'm David and Samson. David and Samson wish they were me. I'm standing there in the cage with the bull, and all of a sudden, the whole barn fills up with light. Now, I know, like I grew up in Pentecost, right? Like from a baby. I know it's the Lord coming down from heaven to applaud me and say how wonderful and full of joy I made him because of my courage and my bravery. It was Joe, my Uncle Joe. And I'm in there waiting for the word of the Lord, and it was, David! It was like, oh, it's Joe! And I didn't want to get caught with the bull, so what did I do? Let go. And that bull charged, and the rope went right back into my hand. And I slammed on it there, and the bull is like literally over my head, like, and blowing, I'm covered in snot. And Joe's like, don't let go of the rope. Don't let go of the rope. You're okay. You're not in trouble. And he's lied. You're not in trouble. It's okay. It's okay. Just don't let go of the rope. And just walk backwards. I'm coming in. And, I'm walking backwards. It's like, don't trip. He reached over. He had one leg in, but then I was close enough where he grabbed the rope, and I went between his legs, and I started heading for the cornfields. It's 50 miles of corn. He ain't never going to find me. I'm like a squirrel, I was skinnier and faster back those days. And this is in 1964. And I'm flying through those cornfields, and he was shouting, he was saying things that they don't say in church. He said he wasn't going to hit me. He lied. He beat me almost to death. Still a cool story. Anyway. But the devil wanted a slice of Job pie, and God was picking a fight. God was, I think that's kind of what was happening here. That's why God asked him, hey, where were you at? Like God knew he wanted to get Job and he couldn't touch him. Hey, where you been there, bro? What happened? You know, and it's like, hey, you didn't happen to notice when you were going out, my guy Job, he's a good guy. He's honest. He doesn't like evil. He wants to serve me. You know, that's what God is. God is poking at him. The question, the answer revealed, the question and answer session reveals that on occasion, God gets called, that Satan gets called before God, and that Satan has to answer him, that Satan can't hurt anyone without God's permission, that God limits Satan for our benefit, and it reveals that God brags about you when you're doing good. It's not just about when you screw up. When you do good, he brags about it. That God is proud of us when we're innocent, and that when we're honest, even sometimes when it hurts you to be honest. When we stay away from evil, God's proud of us, and he brags.
We are the champions, my friends, and we keep on fighting till the end. We are the champions. We are the champions.
The Rush Bible Study is held at Dream City Church's own Glendale campus every Tuesday night at 6:30. We hope to see you soon. Bye.